presentation with you guys. So first, what user stories are? So, guys, what is a user story? This is just a short description I found in a place, but I would like to hear from you what is a user story for you, from your point of view. So, who wants to share with us? Someone from Costa Rica, maybe? Here, maybe James. What is for you a user story?
For me, a user story is like a requirement or a problem or a needed, whatever is in order one, two,
Great.
something like that.
Great. Someone from Costa Rica who wants to share with us? Maybe, I don't know, Alex? Sorry, Alex. Are you talking? Someone else then. I don't know, Javier. Javier, what is for you a user story?
It's a simple way of putting in words what something should do, considering who would also be doing it.
Great, great. Thank you. Okay, so, sorry, I have to close this. Okay, so what is a user story? I love this description because it's not something big and you can understand very well just looking at that description. It's something short, it's something simple, a simple description of a feature or a needed, as James said, and it's usually made for the customer or the system, you know. Okay, and here we have a simplest a sample of a user story, a simple user story. As a user, I want to reserve another room. That's it. Okay, now the user stories can be composed. See where I click. Okay, composed for three things. It's something we call the three C's. So first, a car. As you saw, here we have a card in the user story. We used to put the user stories in posits, or now we have better tools as Jira, but Jira tried to manage card as well. So the idea is to have the user story written in a note card. Okay, those cards can have different information as estimation, I don't know, acceptance criteria, notes that people can discover through the grooming sessions, for example. So those are the cards. Now, conversation. Conversation, okay, first, you have noticed that I'm not talking about a specific framework. I mean, Scrum, Kanban, or Safe. I'm not talking about that. So when you say conversation, we mostly work in Scrum. And in Scrum, what kind of activity help us with that conversation? So
Planning and grooming.
yeah, right. In a grooming is an special event we use to share ideas with our client, to ask questions, to share thoughts about something that is going to help us to improve that user story, to understand better that user story. And finally, we have the confirmation. The confirmation is the acceptance criteria we have to accomplish in order to realize that we have finished the story. So those are the three C's of a user story: a card, a conversation, and a confirmation. Okay. Now we have some samples of user stories. As you can see in these three examples or samples, they are related with a travel web page maybe. So we have one as a user, I want to cancel a reservation. As a vacation traveler, I want to see photos of the hotels. These are just samples. But I have a question. I think that most of you have heard about epics. So what is an epic? Lore, maybe have you heard the?
No.
Okay. No problem.
Big picture.
Exactly. Seba said that an epic is a big feature. There is something we have to understand very well, that the word epic is used in different ways, depends on frameworks. Safe considers an epic like a something really big. It's like maybe an initiative, like a kind of mini project, yeah, right? But in Scrum, in projects, full Scrum, an epic could be something really big. So my question is, do you think that these stories can be epics or not? Who can answer? Maybe, I don't know, Catalina. Do you think those stories we have here could be epics?
Let me read the
Yes, no?
cards.
Sorry, could you repeat, please?
Probably. Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I think that maybe we can.
I don't know. Yeah, okay,
Definitely.
great. And Adriana, do you think that these stories could be epics? Yes, no?
I don't
Maybe,
think
maybe.
so.
Yeah, I feel there is more to be epics, maybe.
I think that are user stories.
Uh, the answer for me is depends. It depends of the context. Yeah, right. Because in some context could be something really small enough, but in other contexts could be something big. So we have here something very important that needs to be attached for user stories, that are the details. So let me. mm, ah, Okay, so where are the details? So we have, for example, this user story. As a user, I can cancel a reservation. So does the user get a full or partial refund? I don't know. Is the refund to her credit card, or is it a site credit, for example? So maybe with those conditions or cash, yeah, maybe with those conditions, we are gonna need to add more user stories, right? Depends of the rules of the business, right? So it's really important to understand those details, right? For example, is a confirmation provided to the user? How is that confirmation provided? Okay. So now, how can details be included in those small user stories we saw in the cards? So the answer is that could be in a different way. You know, every product owner or every person who writes user stories, or every team who writes user stories can use different techniques to do that. One could be this one, details as a condition of satisfaction. This is the same as acceptance criteria. So this acceptance criteria, for example, can be included as a test of the user story. Yeah, so we can put it in the card itself. Yeah, just write down in a card those like a kind of rules. And it's important to notice that when we say test, doesn't mean that they are going to be for the QA guys, right? Because developers also needs to ensure that the story they have developed accomplish those rules or those conditions of satisfaction. Okay. Okay, so this is the like a kind of first technique you can use to add details to the user stories. If you use Jira, you notice that Jira has something called acceptance criteria, and you can add these kind of things. Also, details can be added in a smaller sub stories. So we have this one. As a user, I want to cancel a reservation. As I told you, This can be a user story, or this can be an epic, depends of the context. We are gonna see that we can understand that this is an epic in this context. For example, we can divide this story in 3 other stories. As a premium site member, I can cancel a reservation up to the last minute. As a non-prime member, I can cancel up to 24 hours in advance, and so on. We can have as many stories depending of our context. Yeah. For that reason, it's really important to, yeah.
Sorry, Camilo, can I add something? Alex here. Yeah, something, a little detail of something I've noticed that happens a couple of times. Sometimes you have a really experienced product owner that can make this kind of split given what he thinks would be the best way to split it. But when you meet with the development team, sometimes they might point out that in logical or the way in which they're going to develop things, it doesn't make sense to split it like the product owner originally suggested. So it's a good idea to ask them as well, because sometimes they'll find things that nobody else noticed just because they know the code much better than you. And since they're going to be evaluated on what they turn in on each user story, it might be a good idea.
Yeah, it is important to have in mind or to have in account the opinion or the advices of our team. That's it, right? Okay. Now, click. Okay. Now, those slides we saw talk a little bit about the user storyboard, and the next one is writing user stories. So this is the most common template, or the template that is most used in the world to write user stories. We have one part that explain to us or let the team know who is the user who is gonna use the feature, what is the goal of that feature, and the reason to implement that goal. Most of the time, some people avoid some of the things, and that is not always good. For example, the reason. Why the reason is important for a user story? The prioritization, right? The prioritization that helps us to know if the user story is really valuable for our client. Yeah, because sometimes we can use techniques like, I don't know, Pareto, for example. So how can we know that the user story is important for our customer? This is going to be like a help for that. Also, why a type of user is important for a user story? Yeah, because for example, yeah, it's who is going to use the product, right? So we cannot have, for example, the most important bank in the world implementing a feature that everybody is gonna use. Sometimes administrators are going to use, are the only ones allowed to use that feature, or sometimes just the user. So it's important to identify, right? So right now, guys, the idea is we are gonna have 5 minutes. Sebas, can you help me with the timing? And you are gonna try to write. If you don't have anything to write there, you can use your cell phone. I don't know. And you are gonna try to write as many user stories as you can about a login. Okay? Oh, this is a mistake. Okay, a login. Here you have some examples. As a registered user, I'm required to log in so that I can access the system. As a, as a forgetful user, I can request a password reminder so that I can log in if I forget mine. So please, we are going to start right now. Try to write as many user stories as you can, and at the end, some of you share what you have. Sorry, Lori.
Hey, for the guys that just joined, we're doing this exercise. Camilo, can you please explain it just real quick?
The exercise, Mariela.
Yes, please.
Okay. We are doing an exercise using the template, the common template of user stories. We need to try to write as many user stories as we can about a login page, right? So here we have two examples, and the idea is you can write as many as you can, and after we finish, we are gonna share those examples or those we could write. Okay. Okay, guys. Who wants to start sharing something? Someone? One volunteer?
I can do it. I have three. The first one is as an offline user, I need to be notified that I can't log in into the system. As a new user, I want to create a new account so that I can use it to log in. As an user, I need to be notified if the enter data is incorrect or if I'm not registered yet. And that's it.
Great. Who else?
Registration. I want to be registered in the application so I can access to the system.
Yeah.
It's like the
Great.
example.
Who else?
I have another one. As a malicious user, I'll get my account blocked after 5 invalid login attempts so that I cannot hack the app.
That's a good one. Thanks, Sylvia. Yeah, that is a product owner talking. That's right. So, okay, guys, that is a good exercise because as a business analyst or as a product owner, you have to try to think out of the box. Sometimes you see something like a very easy or very common like a login, but if you start thinking more deeply, you are gonna find a lot of things that are involved in that login.
I have
Seven? Really? Share with us.
For example, as I need, I don't need password, so I can access this together. So if I press the continue button without the credentials, the message is you need to put the
Ah, great.
if you put a user doesn't exist, the message is the user, I don't know.
Great.
If you only put the user and no password, or put the password and the user,
Ah, yeah. That is a QA guy talking. Great, James. Thank you very much. So now, we have the template, we have done this exercise, but how can or what are the spaces we can use in order to improve the user stories? You know, when the user story born, and we just first the first part of the user story, we still need to add more details. So there are different workshops we can use in order to improve those user stories. As I told you before, one of those workshops in Scrum is called refinement or grooming. I prefer refinement. No, because grooming has a bad context in English. Yeah, but these are calling that refinement. That's why. So the idea in those workshops is try to include us the whole team, right? That is not something that always happen. But the idea is to include the whole team, including the product owner. Also try to include some stakeholders that are those people that are involved in the application every day, right? Sometimes you can do that every sprint is the idea, but sometimes you don't do that every sprint. The idea is to do a brainstorming, try to write as many stories as possible. This goal of try to write as many stories as possible is mostly used in an inception event, right? Is when a project is going to start. So you have a meeting with the whole team and you talk about what you want in the application. I mean, the customer talk about what he wants in the application, and everybody start doing a brainstorming about that. And also, when you are doing these workshops, you are not always doing the prioritization, right? That's something that can came later. Okay. And something also very important in the with the user stories is that you have to iterate the user stories, adding the value or doing different techniques in order to have a complete user depend of the technique they learn.
Camilo,
Depend
you're breaking up real bad. Los perdimos, ¿verdad?
Sí, yo tampoco los
Um,
escucho.
sí, pero parece que están cambiando de red para ver si mejora un poco.
Ok, ok.
Acaba de hablar con Camilo y están teniendo problemas de internet. Entonces, démosles un momentico para que vuelvan.
Okay.
Gracias.
Hello.
Hi, Camilo, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Mariela, can you give me the ownership as well? Again,
Yep.
please.
Okay, done.
Thank you. Sorry, guys. We don't know what happened. So we were talking about that you can have different techniques in order to give him to write good user stories, and this is a kind of technique. So the idea is to take a big one that is called an epic, and you try to write user stories based on that. So here we have frequent flyers. So you can write like as a frequent flyer, I want to check my account. As a frequent flyer, I want to book up a trip, and so on. Right. Also, having that first iteration, you can do another iteration. We can take this one, for example, and we can start doing the same again. Iterate, and iterate, until we have stories with enough detail for the team. But if you ask me, when do you know that you already have a story ready for the team? My answer is depends, because depends of the team, depends of the context of the project. However, yeah. However, that's the topic that came next.
You don't know, you say, depends.
Yeah. That is the topic that came next, and is good practices. I'm gonna show you something that is very helpful to write user stories and to have like a common understanding about when to stop giving information to a user story, or where to stop doing iterations to an epic. And is this: what are the characteristics of a good use and a good user story and a good tasks? So we have this one: invest in good stories and smart tasks. I haven't talked yet about tasks. As you know, tasks are like a specific steps inside a user story about how are you gonna solve, or how are you going to work in that story. It's more or less that. Okay. So let's see what is invest. Invest is this: independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small, and testable. But what is that? Independent. That means that the story, the story cannot overlap other stories, right? It cannot depend of other stories. Sorry, or block other stories, right? So we cannot have dependencies in the user story. So if you have that, maybe the user story is not good. Sorry, or it's an epic, maybe, right? Negotiable. There is a phrase I really like that is: good story captures essence, not details, right? In agile user stories, we can negotiate with our customers or our client in giving details to the story, even if we are doing the sprint, right? I think a lot of you have had questions when you are working the story, and during the sprint they add more detail in the user story. So you can even change the user story, because the most important thing for us is to build something valuable for the client. And you know, the world changes very fast, and sometimes some things become obsolete, right? So maybe the client can say, hey, no, I don't want that anymore, and happens a lot. Valuable. This is what we said. We have to work in things that are valuable for our client. And one thing you can use is Pareto law. Is to choose those functionalities that are more used for the client. For example, that is a technique, but you can use the sorry, James. Yeah, like to prioritize the user story, right? And estimable. Um, uh, when you are allowed to estimate a user story, that helps that the story is gonna be negotiable, because you can say how many times you are gonna need to accomplish that. But remember, it's an estimation. It's not a contract, right? It's not a rule. It's not something that if you don't accomplish that, you are gonna die or something like that. No, it's not like that. Yeah, because it's one of the biggest problems of our teams, that they think that when make a commitment, if they don't accomplish the commitment, they are gonna be fired, and that's not true. Small, yeah, and story needs to be small enough in order to be worked in a sprint or in a time box, right? And testable, we have to understand when the story is done, right? So in that way, we know how or what acceptance criteria we can check in order to say to the client, hey, we already finished that. So that invest is used for user stories. Now, for task, almost all the teams use tasking in
Camilo,
the, yeah,
can I add something here?
yeah,
Um,
sure.
just one consideration is that you don't need to try to break your head if you cannot meet the entire characteristic that Camilo is describing. I mean the invest ones. Because sometimes it will be more time you will invest trying to accommodate the user stories, but at least try to meet the most you can. Sometimes you won't get perfect user stories. It will require a lot of practice, right? But it's okay if you cannot get all of them in a user story the first time. The important thing is that you try to get at least most of them. And if you are trying to write a good user story, but you have spent already a lot of time and you cannot meet all these requirements or these characteristics, just go ahead and ask the task as it is. It doesn't matter if it is not meeting the user story template, for example. I mean, one good example could be something that is not functional, something that it's about a research that you still need to get more information. So those are tricky tasks that you won't get probably all the information right in time to make it fit with this invest pattern. So try to use it, but don't worry too much if it's not perfect the first time. You need to practice a lot to get there.
Yeah, that's very important because the skills of being a good product owner are acquired. I mean, you have to work in those skills in order to be better every day. And the last part is about the SMART. Sorry, SMART is used for tasks, and the letters are specific, right? Everybody needs to be able to understand what is the task about or what the task is going to solve. Measurable, you have to know what means done. You know, that helps you to know that the task is measurable. This word is really hard. Achievable. Yeah. a person needs to, or a team member needs to be able to finish the task, because you can have like maybe a team of juniors, and you can have a task that is very hard, and the task can be finished for a senior, but maybe for a junior is not gonna be like that. So needs to be achievable for the team, needs to be relevant. That means that doesn't have sense on putting task and task and task just to help your metrics, because that is not the idea of the tasks, right? And time box. That means that you have to be able to finish it during your sprint, right? And the idea is to have tasks small, right? Because you cannot have a task that is gonna take the whole sprint, right? Because maybe that task is a user story, right? And that's it. We have finished the good practice part. And also, I based my presentation of a presentation of Mike Cohn. He did.
He's the guy.
Yeah. He's the big boss.
The god.
Yeah.
He's the god of user stories.
Yeah, that man made a presentation. Mountain Goat Software. Yeah. That's it, guys. So before leaving, if you want the presentation, we are sending a survey with with just one question about the support group of today. If you answer that question, we are gonna share with you the presentation. Okay?
Black Mirror.
Yeah.
Of the attendance, you share the presentation.
Yeah. That is the idea. Okay, guys. I don't know if you have. We also write in the invitation. We ask you to bring one user story of your project. Right now, we don't have more time, but try to practice with your project. Take one user story and try to do all the things we talk about during this session. And if you want, you can share that user story with us, and we can discuss about your dubs. Okay?
Thank
So
you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
I apologize about the internet issues. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Camilo.
Bye.